Welcome to Keeping It G with G, the podcast. I'm your host, Gian, but you can call me G. Hence, Keeping It G with G, the podcast. To keep it G means to maintain a level of respect for oneself and those around you. And that is why this show was created, to have an open, honest, vulnerable, and accountable discussion about the ups and downs of everyday life shit as it pertains to self-improvement, love, relationships, and motherhood. So in hopes of me sharing through personal experiences from the lessons I've learned and still learning, I pray that I can shed light and share some gems that will give you that extra push that you may need as we are all growing and learning through life. I'm here to reassure my listeners that it's okay to keep it G while on your journey. Now let's start the show. Happy Sunday and welcome to episode 76 of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. So for this sweet and short Sunday episode, I'll be revisiting a previously recorded topic, journaling. I dropped this episode very early on in the launch of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. And so because of that, I felt it was necessary, being that we are coming up on the end of the year in a couple of weeks. And because I began my own process of reflecting and affirming in my journal about 2020, as well as what I'm looking forward to in 2021. I just felt it was necessary to revisit and drop this encouraging episode on journaling. And if you are a consistent listener of the podcast, you should know by now how much of a cheerleader I am when it comes to journaling. So without further ado, here's the episode. Welcome to episode 5 of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. Today's topic that we're going to get into is something that I discussed briefly on episode 2. And it was how journaling had positively affected my life and helped me to check on myself more frequently and more consistently when I would feel full, or just when I wanted to express my gratitude and thank God for my blessings. Journaling has been my number one go-to to let out or to vent, especially when I don't want to bother my friends and family with my shit. I just find it's more comfortable for me to let out on paper, because you could be your most authentic, transparent self on paper versus talking to a friend or a family member. Of course, if you have a friend or a family member where you could just let out and you feel comfortable enough to let out to them and they're trustworthy, then of course you can do that. But for me, my number one go-to is to journal. It's something that I started as a teenager, and I just continue to do it throughout my adult life, especially with me going through growing pains and just coming into the woman that God intends on me being. That's just me personally. I love to journal, and I try to encourage my family and friends to do so as well. Even if you don't have a journal per se, you could get a notebook or a planner or just a regular piece of paper if you're just at work, or you could just jot down your thoughts real quick. I know for me, sometimes I like to do it in the morning, like when I first get to work, if I feel full from the day before, or if it's been a couple of days where I hadn't journaled or I hadn't let out, then I try to make time for that at least 3 to 4 times a week. Sundays are my favorite days to journal, because it's just like a recap of the week, or sometimes I find myself doing it on my break at work, or I just try to make sure I stay consistent with it so that I don't feel full all the time. Aside from prayer, of course, I would have to say that journaling is my number one go-to. And you don't even have to you're never too old to journal, and you're never too young to journal as long as you can put a pen to paper. It's extremely helpful. And I am going to encourage men and women, if you're listening, or teenagers, if you're listening, to get a journal and keep it private. And sometimes, like once I finish a full notebook or a full journal, sometimes I go back and reflect on what I wrote and try to compare it to where I am in the present time. So if it had been a couple of months when I started the journal, I'll go back on the last day of me writing, and I'll go back and flip through the pages and try to see what I've learned and try to apply it to my life now. And it helps me with my growth, because then I can reflect on how I was feeling and how I'm feeling now. So that's important. And I did some research on the positive effects of journaling, and I came up on this article on psychcentral.com. I'll put it in the show notes if you guys want to refer back to it. And it just kind of talked about how journaling can affect your life positively. So I'm going to go through each bullet point and just summarize it real briefly. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Journaling helps you to clarify your thoughts and feelings. Taking a few minutes to jot down your thoughts and emotions will quickly get you in touch with your internal world. It helps you to know yourself better. By writing routinely, you will get to know what makes you feel happy and confident. You will also become clear about situations and people who are toxic for you. It also helps you to reduce stress. Writing about anger, sadness, or other painful emotions helps to release the intensity of these feelings. By doing so, you will feel calmer and better able to stay in the present. And I don't want you guys to think that you just need a journal to jot down all the bad shit that's going on in your life. You can also use it to express your gratitude, like to be thankful for your blessings, or to be grateful for how far you've come. If you feel like you've grown or want to grow, you could set your goals out. You could write your goals out so that you can refer back to them and make sure that you hit each point of your goal to accomplish it. I just wanted to throw that in there real quick. It also helps you to solve problems more effectively. It says, typically we problem solve from a left-brained analytical perspective, but sometimes the answer can only be found by engaging right-brained creativity and intuition. Writing unblocks these other capabilities and affords the opportunity for unexpected solutions to seemingly unsolvable problems. And the last point is it helps you to resolve disagreements with others. Writing about misunderstandings rather than stewing over them will help you to understand another's point of view. And you just may come up with a sensible resolution to the conflict. And it also says that if you're just beginning to journal, the most effective way for you to be consistent with journaling is to do it daily for about 20 minutes and forget about spelling and punctuation. Write quickly, as this frees your brain from shoulds and other blocks to successful journaling. So yes, guys, I'm going to encourage all ages, whoever's listening out there, to get a journal. It's going to help you tremendously with communicating effectively and dealing with your emotions as we go through life daily. And it'll just help you to feel more lighter, because we do a lot of stuff daily. And sometimes you do not want to put that burden on your family or friends and vent to them. Or some people might just be scared that they're going to be judged, but it's okay. You can journal and pray, and wherever you feel comfortable with venting to a family or a friend that's trustworthy, then definitely do that. Just don't keep it bottled in. It's so unhealthy, and I don't want that for you. So, I wanted to keep this episode short and sweet. So I'm going to start going into the quotes to close the episodes out. Don't forget to send your advice if you have any questions or topics that you would like for me to talk about or touch on. Email that to askg@gmail.com. On the previous episode, I said the wrong email. I spelled it wrong. So it's askgxxh@gmail.com. I'll also put that in the show notes, along with the link to the psychcentral.com article that I was reading off of. So to get right into the quotes to close out the show, the first one says, writing in a journal reminds you of your goals and of your learning in life. It offers a place where you can hold a deliberate, thoughtful conversation with yourself. The second one says, journal writing, when it becomes a ritual for transformation, is not only life-changing, but life-expanding. And the last one says, journaling is paying attention to the inside for the purpose of living well from the inside out. I hope that you guys have found that episode on journaling to be encouraging, and hopefully it gave you the willpower to go out and purchase a journal of your own and begin your journey of journaling. There is so much healing and freedom in being able to reflect, put your thoughts, emotions, and affirmations onto paper. So I hope that this revisited episode on journaling encouraged you to do just that. And that is the show. Please don't forget to check out the website for the podcast, the playlist for the podcast, and to follow the Twitter and Instagram for the podcast. All the information will, of course, be where? In the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And I will leave you guys with that. And I'll talk to you for the next episode of Keeping It G with G, the podcast. Have a great rest of your Sunday.